In a quiet town surrounded by forest, there lived a man named Daniel. Daniel was not young, but not old either. He was quiet, lonely, and liked to walk. Every morning he walked to the bakery. Every evening he walked to the lake. But one night, Daniel did not walk home. That night, he saw something strange. Daniel lived near Whispering Pines, a forest with tall, dark trees. The town people always said, "Don't go into the forest at night." Children said the trees talked. Old people said people disappeared there. Daniel did not believe in stories. He thought they were just old tales to scare people. But deep inside, he felt the forest was watching. One evening, the wind was strong. The sky turned orange and red. Daniel walked to the lake like always. The lake was still. The sky reflected in the water like a fire. Daniel sat down and looked across the water. That's when he heard it. A whisper. It was soft, like leaves brushing together. He looked around. Nobody was there. Then he heard it again, louder. Daniel. His body froze. His eyes stared into the trees. Nothing. No one, only trees and wind. He stood up and started walking back to town. But the path was gone. Where the dirt road should be, there was only grass and trees. Daniel turned. The lake was behind him, but the trees were closer now. Much closer, too close. Daniel ran. He ran between the trees, hoping to find the town, but every turn looked the same. Tall trees, no stars, no path. He was trapped, he screamed. But his voice was swallowed by the dark. Then he saw a light. A small cabin. Just ahead. Old, broken, but maybe someone was inside. Daniel ran toward the light. The door creaked open. Inside it was quiet. Dust on the floor. Cobwebs on the walls. But there was a chair. And in that chair sat an old woman. She did not move. Her eyes were closed. Daniel stepped closer. Then her eyes opened. They were white, no color, just white. "You heard it, didn't you?" she said. Daniel could not speak. "The voice," she said. "It calls the lonely ones. It called me too." "What voice?" Daniel asked. "The forest. It wants to be heard. It wants stories, and once you hear it, you can never leave." "I want to go home," Daniel said. They were white, no color, just white. "You heard it, didn't you?" she said. Daniel could not speak. "The voice," she said. "It calls the lonely ones. It called me too." "What voice?" Daniel asked. "The forest. It wants to be heard. It wants stories, and once you hear it, you can never leave." "I want to go home," Daniel said. She shook her head. "You're already home. You just don't know it yet." Then she smiled and started to cry. But the tears were black, thick like oil. Suddenly, Daniel felt a cold wind. The cabin disappeared. He was alone again, in the forest. He looked at his hands. They were changing. His fingers were turning gray. His skin looked like bark. He screamed. The whisper came again. "Daniel." And this time he answered, "Yes." The forest smiled. Daniel woke up on the cold forest floor. His head hurt. His clothes were damp. He couldn't remember how he got there. Only the voice and the old woman crying black tears. Was that real? He sat up slowly. His hands still looked normal. His skin was not bark. Maybe it was just a dream. A bad dream. But the forest was still there. The same tall trees. The same silence. He stood up and looked around. There were no paths, no footprints, nothing to show where he had come from. The sky was gray. A thick fog was falling between the trees. Daniel started walking. He had to find the town, or at least someone. Anyone. The fog grew thicker with each step. It clung to his face like wet cloth. Then he saw a shape, a person, standing still. Daniel called out, "Hello? Are you lost too?" No answer. He walked closer. It was a man. His back was turned. He wore a long black coat, and his head was covered with a wide hat. "Sir, can you help me?" Daniel asked. The man didn't move. Daniel stopped just a few feet away. "Please," Daniel said. "I can't find the way out." Still no answer. Then the man spoke. But his voice didn't come from his mouth. It came from inside Daniel's head. "You shouldn't be here," the voice said. Daniel stepped back. What are you?" The man finally turned around, but he had no face, just skin. Smooth, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Still, the voice echoed again. "You heard the forest. That means it chose you." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't choose anything. You don't choose. It chooses you. It feeds on the lonely, on the quiet ones." "I want to leave," Daniel said. "I don't belong here." The faceless man raised a finger and pointed behind Daniel. Daniel turned. The trees had changed again. They were wider, twisted. Some had deep cracks that looked like mouths. Others looked like they were breathing. And in the middle of the fog, a new shape appeared. A house, not a cabin, not old, a modern house. Clean, white walls, glass windows. It looked like it had no place in this forest. Daniel looked back to the faceless man. But he was gone. The house was quiet. Daniel walked up the stone steps. The door opened by itself. Inside it was warm. He stepped in. Everything was clean. White walls, smooth floors, soft lights. It looked like someone lived there. He walked down the hallway. Default text: he saw a kitchen, a living room, a mirror. He stopped at the mirror and stared. His reflection was smiling. But Daniel wasn't. He looked behind him, nothing there. He looked again. Now his reflection was crying, then laughing. Then it opened its mouth and whispered, "Stay." Daniel screamed and smashed the mirror. Behind it, he saw a door. He opened the door and stepped into a dark staircase going down. He felt something pulling him to go deeper. He took one step, then another. With each step, the light faded, and the whispers grew louder. He reached the bottom, a cold room, concrete walls. In the middle, a circle made of bones. And in that circle, a small girl sat, humming a tune. She looked up. Her eyes were too big, too dark. "Are you the new one?" she asked. Daniel backed away. I don't know what's happening." She smiled, showing sharp little teeth. "You're going to forget soon, just like the others. I need to leave." "No, you need to stay. The forest needs stories. And you haven't told yours yet." She reached out her hand. "Come sit. I'll help you remember." Daniel turned and ran back up the stairs. But the stairs never ended. He climbed and climbed and climbed until finally he came out, back into the forest, back into the fog. But something was wrong. The sky was no longer gray. It was black. The trees were bleeding. And in the distance he heard screaming. Hundreds of voices. Crying, laughing, whispering. And one voice louder than the rest. "Daniel." He turned to run, and saw himself, standing just a few feet away. But this version of Daniel looked different. His eyes were white, his hands were bark, and he was smiling. "You're almost ready," the other Daniel said. Then everything went dark. Daniel opened his eyes again. He was lying in a shallow pit, surrounded by black roots. His body hurt. His mouth was dry. The forest above him moved slowly, as if it was breathing. For a moment, he didn't move. He just listened. The wind was whispering again. But now it was louder, clearer. It didn't just say his name. It told stories. He sat up and listened. A woman crying in a cave. A child walking alone near the lake. A man tying a noose in a cabin. Daniel held his head. The stories were painful, sad, angry, full of voices from people who were lost. He stood up and climbed out of the pit. Above the ground, the forest looked different. The trees were closer together. The sky was gone, only thick branches above. He turned around and gasped. There were others now, people, standing between the trees, watching him. Some had no eyes, some had no mouths. Some looked like bark and leaves. None of them spoke. Daniel backed away. "Who are you?" One of them stepped forward, a girl with long hair and hollow eyes. "We are the ones who stayed." Daniel felt his knees weaken. "Stayed?" The forest calls. Some run, some listen, some stay. "I'm not staying," Daniel said. "I'm getting out." The girl pointed behind him. He turned. The lake was there again. Still, silent. But something was different. The water was red, like blood. Daniel walked to the edge. In the reflection, he didn't see himself. He saw the forest, burning. He saw a tree made of bones. He saw a door made of mouths. Then the water rippled, and he saw something else. A memory. Himself. At home. Alone in a small room. No sound, no visitors, no phone calls. Just books, a clock, and silence. He saw himself looking out the window every evening, waiting for someone. Anyone. But no one ever came. Daniel began to cry. He remembered now. He had always been alone, even before the forest. That's why it found him. That's why it chose him. The forest doesn't take the strong. It takes the forgotten. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned around and saw the old woman from the cabin. Her eyes were still white. "You remember now," she said softly. "I don't want this," Daniel whispered. "No one does, but we all come here. One way or another. I want to go home." "You never had a home," she said. She held out her hand. "You can fight, you can run. But if you accept it, it will hurt less." Daniel stared at her hand. He thought about his room, his empty dinners, his silent phone. And slowly, he reached out. But before he touched her, he heard a scream. It was loud. Real, human. Not part of the forest. He turned. Someone was running through the trees. A girl, young, maybe 16. She looked terrified. She tripped and fell near Daniel. "Help me!" she shouted. Daniel looked at the old woman. She was gone. The other figures were gone too. Only Daniel and the girl were there. He helped her up. "Who are you?" "Claire," she said, breathing hard. I don't know how I got here. I was at the lake. Then I heard something." Daniel felt a chill. She had just arrived, like him. "I've been here," Daniel said. "It's not safe. We need to move." They walked quickly through the trees. The forest was darker now. The fog was rising again. Claire held Daniel's hand. She was shaking. "I heard voices," she said. "They said my name." Daniel nodded. "It does that. I saw my mom. But she died 2 years ago." Daniel didn't answer. They walked until they saw a light, a fire, in the distance. They walked toward it and found a camp, a real one. A small fire, a few backpacks, and 3 people sitting near the flames. One of them stood up. "More of us," the man said. His voice was tired. Daniel stepped forward. "Who are you?" "We're the ones who fight it," he said. "The forest. We've been here for weeks. Maybe longer." Claire clung to Daniel. "Can we stay here?" The man nodded. "But the forest won't stop. If you sleep, it finds you. If you forget who you are, it takes you." Daniel sat down near the fire. Claire did too. The others looked lost. Their eyes were heavy. One woman was muttering to herself. A boy was drawing strange symbols in the dirt. Daniel looked into the fire. And for the first time, he didn't feel alone. Not yet. The fire crackled quietly. Daniel, Claire, and the others sat in silence. No one spoke unless they had to. The forest listened to every word. Claire leaned closer to Daniel and whispered, "Do you think this place is real?" Daniel looked at her. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she still hoped. He didn't want to take that away. "I think it feels real," he said. "That's enough for now." Across the fire, the man who welcomed them stood up again. His name was Jonas. He had short gray hair and a scar across his face. "This camp isn't safe for long," he said. "It moves. The forest tries to find it." "What do you mean it moves?" Claire asked. Jonas pointed to the trees. "They shift, the paths vanish. Time bends. We've set up camp in 10 different places. Every time, it finds us." "The forest?" Daniel asked. Jonas nodded. "It hunts those who resist, those who try to leave." Daniel thought about the whispering voices, the faceless man, the old woman, the mirror, and the other version of himself. "I saw myself," Daniel said. "Another me." He was changing. Jonas nodded slowly. "The forest wants you to become part of it. Some of us turn fast, some slowly. But we all feel it pulling." Daniel clenched his fists. "How do we stop it?" "You don't stop it," Jonas said. "You survive it." That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat near the fire while the others took turns keeping watch. Claire rested with her head on a bundle of leaves, her breathing soft and slow. Jonas sat beside Daniel and offered him a piece of dried meat. Daniel took it but didn't eat. "I've seen people change," Jonas said quietly. "One night they're normal, the next morning they're gone. But something walks in their skin." Daniel looked at him. "Then how are you still here?" "I remember," Jonas said. "Every day I say my name. My story, my memories. The forest can't take what you don't forget." In the early morning, the fog returned. Claire woke up with a scream. Daniel ran to her. "What happened?" I had a dream," she said. "My mother was outside the camp. She called me. She said she wasn't dead." "She is," Daniel said gently. "It's the forest. It lies." Claire nodded, tears on her face. "But I almost followed her." Daniel realized something important. The forest uses pain, loneliness, regret. It finds your weakest memories and turns them against you. He looked around the camp. "We need to move." Jonas agreed. They packed up quickly. The fire was put out. Bags were tied. The others moved like ghosts. Jonas led the group through the trees. They walked for hours. Time felt strange again. Sometimes the sun shone between branches. Sometimes it vanished. No one spoke unless they had to. Then Jonas stopped. In front of them was a clearing, and in the center stood a giant tree. Its trunk was pale and twisted. Its roots spread across the ground like veins. Its branches were sharp and bare, and its bark was made of bones. Claire gasped. "What is that?" Jonas didn't answer. Daniel walked closer. His chest felt tight. His ears rang. When he touched the tree's bark, a memory flashed in his mind. He saw a small boy, alone in a hospital room, crying. The lights flickered. Machines beeped. Outside, no one waited. The boy looked up. It was Daniel. He was 6 years old. Alone, forgotten. He saw nurses walk by. No one noticed him. Then he saw a tree outside the window, tall, watching. Daniel pulled back his hand. The memory faded. "This tree, it's alive," he whispered. Jonas nodded. "It's the heart of the forest. Everything comes from it. Every whisper. Every shadow." Claire stepped closer. "Can we burn it?" Jonas shook his head. "You can't destroy what you carry inside." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. Jonas looked into Daniel's eyes. "The forest is memory, grief, pain. It's not just outside us. It's part of us." Suddenly, one of the other survivors, an older woman named Ruth, stepped forward. "I hear them," she said. Her voice was hollow. "They're calling me." Jonas grabbed her arm. "Don't listen. Stay with us." But she didn't stop. She walked to the bone tree and placed her hand on the trunk. Her eyes turned white. Her skin cracked. And then she was gone. Only her shadow remained, burned into the roots. Claire screamed. Daniel held her. "We have to go," Jonas said. "Now." They ran through the fog, through the twisting trees. The forest was angry now. It howled and groaned. Branches reached out like claws. Shadows chased them. One of the boys fell. Daniel turned to help, but the ground opened and swallowed him. They kept running. The forest tried to close around them, but suddenly they saw a house. Not the cabin, not the white one, a new house. It looked like Daniel's childhood home. Daniel stopped. He stared at it. His old porch, his door, his room on the second floor. It was perfect. But Claire didn't see it. "Daniel," she said, "what are you looking at?" "The house," he said. "It's mine." Claire looked confused. "There's nothing there." Daniel blinked. The house was gone. Only trees, only mist. Jonas pulled him back. "The forest is trying to trick you. Don't stop." They ran again, farther, deeper, until the trees began to thin, and the whispers faded. They reached another clearing, and at the center, a strange object. A door, standing alone. The door stood in the clearing like it had always been there. No walls, no building. Just a tall wooden door, cracked and ancient, floating upright without support. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Daniel, Claire, Jonas, and the others circled around it. Claire whispered, "What is this?" Jonas shook his head. "I've heard of it. Some call it the memory gate. No one knows where it leads." Daniel stepped closer. His hand trembled as he reached for the knob. The moment his fingers touched it, he was no longer in the forest. He stood in a school hallway. Lockers, bells, teenagers laughing. And down the hallway he saw a boy sitting alone. It was Daniel, 15 years old, sitting on the floor, hugging his knees. Ignored, a group of boys passed by, laughing loudly. "Freak," one of them muttered. No one looked at him. No one cared. Daniel reached out to the younger version of himself, but his hand passed through him like mist. Then the scene shifted. He was in a small kitchen. An older man, his father, sat at the table, head down, drink in hand. Daniel stood in the corner, invisible. The man muttered, "Why couldn't you just be normal?" Daniel covered his ears. He screamed, "Stop!" And he was back. The door still stood before him. Claire looked at him. "Are you okay?" "I saw my life," Daniel whispered. "The worst parts." Jonas nodded. "That's what it does. It shows you the moments you buried." Claire looked afraid. "Why would it show us that?" "Because the forest grows from pain," Jonas said. "It feeds on it. This door is a test." Daniel stared at the wood. "What happens if we go through?" "No one comes back to tell us," Jonas replied. The group sat in the clearing for hours. Some wanted to leave. Some wanted to open the door. The fog thickened again. The trees groaned. Then, someone stepped forward. It was Claire. She touched the doorknob. The wood turned black, and the door swung open. Inside was darkness. Claire turned to Daniel. "I need to know what's on the other side." Daniel shook his head. "We don't know what it is." "I don't care," Claire said. "I can't go back to running." She stepped through and disappeared. Daniel shouted her name and rushed toward the door. Jonas grabbed his arm. "Wait, don't follow her. Not yet." Daniel pulled away. "She's just a kid." Jonas looked grim. "That door might not be for you. If you enter before you're ready, it'll break you." Daniel looked at the black opening. His hands were shaking. But he stepped back. "I'll come for you," he whispered to the door. And it slowly shut itself. That night, the group camped far from the door. Jonas drew symbols around the camp. "For protection," he said. "Old signs." They confused the forest. Daniel sat alone, staring at the sky. But the sky was wrong. There were no stars, only blackness, and in the black, faces, watching, whispering. Daniel lay down and closed his eyes, and dreamed. He stood in the forest again. But it was silent now. No fog, no voices, just stillness. And across from him stood the other Daniel, the twisted version. Bark hands, white eyes, a smile too wide for a human face. "You're almost ready," it said. "I don't want this," Daniel replied. "You already chose it," the other Daniel said. "When you stopped talking, when you stopped hoping, that's when the forest found you." Daniel shook his head. "No, I'm not like you." The other Daniel leaned in. "You will be." Then it placed a hand on Daniel's chest, and everything burned. He woke up screaming. Jonas rushed over. "Another dream?" Daniel nodded, gasping. "It's getting stronger," Jonas said. "You need to choose soon. Fight it, or let it take you." "I need to find Claire," Daniel said. "She went through that door. There has to be a way." Jonas looked away. "There might be." The next day, Jonas led Daniel to a part of the forest none of the others dared to go. It was deeper, colder. The trees there had no leaves. Only bones hung from the branches. In the center, there was a circle of stone. Jonas said, "This is where we listen." He pulled out a small black stone and placed it in Daniel's hand. "Hold this. Think of her." Daniel closed his eyes and pictured Claire. Her voice, her fear, her smile. And then, he heard her crying, calling his name. He opened his eyes. In front of him, floating in the mist, was a mirror. And inside the mirror, Claire. Trapped, she pounded on the glass. "Daniel, help me." He reached out. "Claire." But Jonas grabbed him. "It's a trick. It looks like her, but it's not." "No," Daniel said. "It's her. She's real. She's inside." Jonas looked afraid. "If you go in, you might not come out." "I don't care," Daniel said. "I can't leave her." He stepped forward. The mirror rippled like water, and swallowed him. Inside it was dark. No ground, no sky. Only floating memories, like pieces of film in the air. He saw Claire, running, crying, alone. He followed her, calling her name. She didn't answer. Until he touched her shoulder. She turned. It was her, tears in her eyes. "You came," she whispered. "I told you I would," Daniel said. She hugged him tightly. And suddenly, the world around them collapsed. They landed hard in the forest again. The real one. Jonas was gone. So were the others. Only Daniel and Claire remained. And behind them, the door now lay flat on the ground, shattered into ash. Daniel looked at Claire. "Now what?" Claire pointed ahead. A path had opened. For the first time, the forest made a path. And at the end of it, a light. The forest had never shown them a clear path before. But now, under pale gray skies and silent trees, one stretched ahead of Daniel and Claire. A narrow trail lined with dark stones, each carved with faces frozen in silent screams. Claire hesitated. "Do you think this is real?" Daniel nodded slowly. "The forest never shows us light unless it wants something. Do we follow it?" He looked into the distance. The light wasn't warm. It flickered like a candle in a storm, uncertain, weak, but it was better than shadows. "We follow," he said. They began to walk. As they stepped onto the echo path, the stones whispered. Not words, memories. Claire heard her mother's voice reading bedtime stories. Daniel heard the soft click of a typewriter, his childhood dream of becoming a writer. Each step brought a new sound, a new memory. But with each step, those sounds grew sharper. Claire began to hear her mother screaming. Daniel heard the typewriter break over and over, then laughter, cruel laughter. Voices from the past. "Freak. Alone again? Why do you even try?" Daniel stopped walking. So did Claire. The path was no longer lit. The light ahead flickered out. Now only red embers glowed on each side. Eyes. Watching. Daniel dropped to one knee, gripping his head. They're inside my mind. Claire knelt beside him. Ignore them. They're not real. Daniel shook his head. They are. They're my failures. My pain. I carried them into the forest. She held his face gently. Then carry me too. Daniel blinked. Her voice cut through the noise. Real. Alive. He took a deep breath and stood up. The whispers faded just a little. The path brightened. They walked again. Eventually, the path ended at a clearing with 7 stone thrones, arranged in a circle. Each throne had a name carved into the seat. 6 names were worn away by time, but one name glowed. Daniel. His breath caught. Claire touched the arm of one throne. What is this place? Daniel approached the glowing one. It's a choice. He sat. Everything shifted. He was no longer in the forest. He was standing on a hill overlooking the forest. He saw it all. The twisted trees, the lake, the cabins, the bone tree, the mirror, the door. It pulsed like a living thing, feeding on memories, growing stronger. A voice behind him said, "Now you understand." He turned. The other Daniel stood there, still in bark and shadow, still with empty eyes. This forest, the other Daniel said, is not a place. It's a cycle. A trap? Daniel asked. A reflection, the other Daniel replied, of those who are forgotten, who give up, who fall through the cracks. Default text. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we break it. The other Daniel laughed. You can't kill what lives inside you. Then I change. Suddenly Claire was beside him on the hill. I saw everything, she said, your memories, your pain. Daniel looked down at the forest. I know what we have to do. He took her hand. And together, they stepped off the hill and into the forest's heart. They woke in another clearing. But this one was silent, peaceful. In the center stood a massive black stone, cracked and glowing. The whispers were louder here than ever before. Thousands of voices, crying, begging, remembering. Claire stepped closer. It's the core. Daniel nodded. Where all the memories live. What do we do? She asked. Daniel looked around. Default text and saw them. The others. The lost people. The eyeless, the bark-covered, the hollowed. They stepped from the trees and surrounded the stone. Watching. Waiting. Daniel walked to the stone. His reflection in it showed every version of himself. The boy in the hospital, the teenager crying on the floor, the adult locked in silence. He placed both hands on it and whispered one word, enough. A tremor shook the forest. The stone cracked. Voices screamed. Light burst from the cracks. The others wailed, turning to ash. Claire held Daniel tightly. The forest howled. And then silence. They opened their eyes and found themselves standing by the lake. But it was calm now. The water was clear. The trees stood still. The fog was gone. Daniel looked around. It felt real. Claire stepped forward. Did we break it? Daniel wasn't sure. Maybe we just escaped it. A breeze blew past them, warm. The forest whispered one last time. But now it didn't sound like sorrow. It sounded like goodbye. As they walked back toward the road, Daniel looked over his shoulder one last time. The forest stood silent, watching, waiting, but no longer whispering. He turned to Claire. We carry it with us, he said. But it doesn't carry us, she replied. And they walked away. Together. The road should have felt like safety. After everything, the bone tree, the door, the mirror, the echo path, Daniel and Claire had finally left the forest behind. Or so they thought. They walked in silence, tired, dirty, alive. Every step took them farther from the trees. But Daniel's mind couldn't let go. He still heard them, faint whispers, distant echoes, and worse, he could feel something following them. Not a shadow, not a person, but something inside. They reached a small gas station just before nightfall. The lights inside flickered. A woman behind the counter looked up as they entered. She smiled. "Well, you two look like hell." Daniel didn't respond. Claire forced a weak smile. "Car broke down." The woman nodded. "There's a motel down the road. One of the rooms might still be clean." Claire picked up snacks and water. Daniel wandered to the bathroom. Inside the mirror above the sink, he saw his face. Normal, human. But his reflection blinked late. His heart froze. He splashed cold water on his face and leaned closer. "Don't look too long," a voice whispered behind him. He spun around. The stall door creaked open. No one there. Only a smell rotting wood. Like the forest. They left quickly. Claire looked at him. "It followed us, didn't it?" Daniel nodded. "Or maybe we brought it." At the motel, they took room 9. Inside, the lights buzzed. The air felt heavy. Daniel turned on the TV for background noise. But it only showed static. Claire sat on the bed, holding her knees to her chest. "I keep seeing things," she said. "Shadows, faces, even in the daylight." Daniel sat beside her. "I think the forest marked us." Claire looked at him. "Why us?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Because we listened." That night, Daniel dreamt of fire. The bone tree burned. Voices screamed from inside it. Claire was there trapped in the flames. And standing in the smoke was Jonas ... still alive. His skin was cracked like tree bark. "Daniel," he said, "you left too soon." Daniel shook his head. "We escaped." "No," Jonas whispered. "You brought it with you." The ground split open. Roots reached for Daniel. He fell and woke up, screaming. Claire sat up, breathing hard. "I heard it too." Daniel stared at the wall. "This isn't over." Outside, something moved past the window. Not a car, not a person, just a shape, sliding, breathing, watching. They stayed awake until morning. The next day, they searched for answers. Daniel remembered a name Jonas once said: Elias Moreau, an old man who knew the forest, lived near it for decades. They found a number. Claire called. An old voice answered. "Who told you to find me?" "Jonas," she said. Silence. Then, "Come before sunset." He gave them directions to a farmhouse near the edge of the valley. The drive was quiet. The farther they went, the more the world felt thinner, colors faded, time slowed. They reached the house at dusk. It was old, wooden, with dead flowers on the porch. A man opened the door before they knocked. Elias Moreau, pale skin, cloudy eyes. "I saw you in my dreams," he said. Daniel swallowed. "We escaped the forest. But we brought something back." Elias nodded. "You always do." Inside, the house was filled with books, dried herbs, bones, candles, and symbols carved into the walls. Claire looked around. "What is this place?" "A memory anchor," Elias said. "This house keeps me from fading." Daniel frowned. "From fading into what?" "The forest," Elias said. "It reaches even here, in sleep, in guilt, in silence." He sat and lit a candle. "You brought it something it's never had before," he said. "What?" Daniel asked. "A crack." Elias told them the forest was ancient. A place built from abandoned memories, unspoken grief, and broken souls. It grew stronger when people forgot the ones they'd lost. But Daniel and Claire had fought it, had remembered, had spoken. "You damaged the cycle," Elias said. "Now it's trying to rebuild, through you." Claire shook her head. "Then what do we do?" Elias looked at them with tired eyes. "You go back." Daniel stood. "We're not going back there." "You already are," Elias said. "Every dream, every sound, every reflection, It's calling. Claire looked afraid. And if we ignore it? You'll become part of it, bit by bit, until your name vanishes. Daniel sat back down, defeated. Then how do we finish this? Elias reached into a box and pulled out a wooden coin, carved with the shape of an eye. This opens the final door, he said, the last door to the forest's heart. As they left the house, the sky had turned red. The world was tilting again, reality fraying. Claire held the coin tightly. Do we wait? Daniel shook his head. No more running. They looked into the forest. The trees moved aside. The door waited. They stepped through. And the forest welcomed them back. Only now it was different. The trees whispered in recognition. The paths led forward. And in the distance, the light they once saw was no longer flickering. It was waiting, bright. Unafraid. Daniel turned to Claire. Let's finish this. And they walked. Into the center. The forest had changed. No longer dark and chaotic. No longer whispering madness. It was calm, but not safe. Daniel and Claire walked carefully. The wooden coin Elias gave them clutched in Claire's hand. The trees shifted around them, parting without sound, forming a corridor of knotted roots and gray light. In the silence, Daniel spoke. Do you remember your old life? Claire nodded. Pieces. My bedroom, a song I used to love, a birthday party. Before my mom disappeared. Daniel glanced at her. You think she's in here? Claire's voice was a whisper. I think part of her is. They reached a small wooden bridge. Underneath, the river wasn't water. It was memories, ribbons of light and shadow flowing endlessly. In the current, they saw faces. Jonas, their younger selves, the other Daniel, and strangers long forgotten. Claire hesitated. Is this death? No, Daniel said. This is what's left behind. They crossed the bridge, and as they did, they heard voices behind them. Soft ... Mourning, singing, a lullaby. Claire stopped, her mother's voice. She turned, but nothing was there. Only a gust of wind and the smell of lilacs. Ahead, a massive tree waited ... Unlike the bone tree, this one was alive, green and gold, glowing with veins of white fire. Its branches touched the clouds, its roots dug into the world. The heart tree, Daniel approached it. At the base of the trunk was a door. Claire took out the coin. It hummed in her hand ... Daniel looked at her. Are you ready? She nodded ... They placed the coin into a small circular slot. The door creaked open. Light poured out. They stepped into a space with no sky, no floor, just memory. Memories like stars, millions, hovering, shifting, living. A voice spoke, not loud, not deep, just everywhere. You have come to the center. Daniel stepped forward. We want to end this. To end the forest is to forget all who were lost, the voice said. Are you willing to sacrifice their memory? Claire stepped forward. We want to remember them, not trap them here. The voice paused. Few asked to remember. The space changed. Suddenly, Daniel stood in a hospital hallway. Claire was gone. The forest gone. Only harsh lights, white floors, and an empty chair. He looked down. His mother was lying in a hospital bed, unmoving. This was her final day. Daniel was 14. He had run out of the room when the machines beeped. He had been too afraid to say goodbye. Now he stood over her, older, wiser. I'm sorry, he whispered. He sat in the chair, held her hand, and stayed. Claire stood in her childhood bedroom. Music played softly. Posters on the wall, torn stuffed animals, faded photographs. The door creaked open. Her mother stood there. Not real, but real enough. They looked at each other. Claire stepped forward. I miss you, she said. I know, her mother said. But you're not lost anymore. Claire hugged her. The room faded. Daniel and Claire met again in the center. The voice spoke once more. You remembered, without fear, without turning away. The stars above them flared. You broke the cycle. A wind rose. The memories began to drift upward. One by one, names whispered from the void. Jonas, Elias, the campers who had disappeared, the faceless watchers, even the other Daniel. The forest was letting them go. Daniel turned to Claire. What happens to us? The voice whispered, you choose. The space filled with white light, and a doorway appeared. Behind it, the real world. Cars, streets, homes, a place without whispering trees. But beside that door was another. A second door, plain, wooden, just like the one from before. Claire looked at Daniel. If we walk through the first, we go home, try to live normal lives. And if we walk through the second, we stay, she said, to guide the next ones who get lost. Daniel nodded slowly. Someone guided us. They stood in silence. Then Claire took Daniel's hand. And together, they walked through the second door. The forest remains, but it no longer traps. Now it waits. And when the lost come wandering, two voices guide them through, telling stories, remembering names, breaking the silence. The forest was silent, not the silence of death, but of peace, stillness, a hush that followed healing. Daniel and Claire stood beneath the canopy, watching the light shift through the trees. The forest no longer whispered sorrow. Now it whispered names. They had chosen the second door. They stayed, not as prisoners, but as guides. Each time someone entered the forest alone, afraid, forgotten, Daniel and Claire met them. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in flickers of light, sometimes only as a voice saying, you're not alone. One day, a girl arrived, 12 years old, mud on her face, eyes full of fear. She wandered the bone path, nearly stepped into the lake, nearly touched the mirror. Daniel appeared before her, smiling gently. Turn around, he said. That way leads to forgetting. The girl froze. Are you real? As real as you are, Daniel said. She looked at him. I'm looking for someone. Claire stepped from the trees. We'll help you remember. Another time, an old man entered. He walked slowly, dragging pain like a weight. Claire met him at the echo path. He said, I want to forget everything. She shook her head. No, you want to be seen, he cried, and the forest listened. Years passed, seasons changed. But Daniel and Claire did not age. They were part of the forest now, but not in the way the others had been. They were not bark-covered nor eyeless. They were present, alive in memory. Then one night, Claire heard something new, a heartbeat. Inside her. She sat beneath the heart tree, confused. Daniel? She whispered. He came running. She placed his hand on her stomach. Another heartbeat joined hers. Life, new life. In a place built from sorrow. The forest glowed gold that night. A gift, a sign. It had never held life like this. Not real life, not love. The child was born under the canopy of stars, in the clearing where Jonas once stood. A boy. Healthy. Eyes bright. His cry echoed across the trees, not a scream of fear, but the first breath of freedom. They named him Elias. As he grew, the forest taught him its language. Not just whispers, but memories. He could feel what others felt. Guide them gently. Help them remember. But he was also curious about the world beyond, about cities, oceans, stars. Daniel and Claire knew the day would come. 18 years later, Elias stood before the two doors. His backpack was packed. His heart steady. Daniel hugged him tightly. Claire kissed his forehead. Elias asked, "What if I forget you?" Claire smiled. "You won't. We live in your story now." Daniel handed him a coin. Not the eye coin. A new one. Carved with a symbol that looked like a tree and a heart intertwined. "Give this to someone lost. Daniel said. Like we once were. Elias nodded ... and stepped through the first door. He returned to the world. He became a storyteller, a counselor, a quiet man with a calming voice who worked with those who felt broken. He never spoke of the forest directly, but his stories reached millions. One story in particular, about a forest that whispered ... about two souls who stayed behind to help others, and about the day he was born beneath the leaves. Back in the forest, Daniel and Claire watched the trees sway. The forest was still quiet, but it no longer needed to whisper for help. It whispered hope. When the truly lost still came, the ones trapped in grief, the ones burdened by silence, they still found the path, and they still found two people waiting. Two voices saying, "We remember you."